great. So this, in case you didn't know, this is the second version of How's My Waterway. The first one was released in 2012, and I think, or 2013, and it pulled data from one database at EPA, and now this one that we released in June of last year pulls data from about 12 different databases at EPA and other federal agencies. So we've improved it a lot. Sometimes I call it the Cadillac version. But so we wanted the public to be able to access our water data and not have to go to several different websites to do that and download PDFs and read them. And, you know, we wanted them to be able to see the waters and know what's going on all in one place. So you'll see that when I search for a place. We also wanted to make it accessible and user-friendly. We wanted it to be as easy as possible to understand. So we have a glossary up here, and we've defined over 100 terms in How's My Waterway, and you can click on them throughout the app, but not all of them. So we have all of them in the glossary, and you can click and find out more about a lot of these. So, so we want it to be accessible for anyone in the public, really. And you don't have to be a scientist or a techie person to learn about water and How's My Waterway. We also want to highlight the work that the states, tribes, and volunteers have done on submitting data to EPA. And importantly, we wanted to inspire the public to restore and protect their water. So I show this to my friends a lot, and they're like, oh, I had no idea my water was so bad. I want to do something about it. So that's been useful. So to get started here, you can enter an address, zip code, or place, or you can just jump into the community level, which is what's going on in your backyard, in your small Huck 12 watershed, or you can get a comprehensive view of what's going on in your state, or you can go to the national page. You can also explore the 4 topics here at the bottom that we found out the public was most interested in, which was swimming, eating fish, aquatic life, and drinking water. You can jump right into those. So to start, we, well, first I'll show you, we have a few different things in this search box. You can search for an area. You can also search for a tribal area if you know a tribe you want to go to. Or you can search by watershed if you know the watershed name. But I'm just going to start and search for Denver, Colorado, and then press go. And it will suggest different names if there's a couple of Denvers around the US, which looks like there might be something in Arkansas. Or you can use your location if you're out by a water body and you want to know about that water where you are. You can just press that button. So I'm going to press go. So now it's pulling all that data from all those different databases that I mentioned. And when you come here, you'll get an overview page, and this is going to show you the data in the small watershed, the local watershed, we call it, that you land on. And How's My Waterway, you can see what that's called up here on the right. Watershed is Cherry Creek, South Platte River, and then the Huck 12 code is right there as well. I think the Huck, I heard the Huck is a very government-y term, and so that's what our data is cut up by, are these smaller watersheds called Huck 12s. If you don't know what a watershed is, you can click on this word, and whoops, and the glossary will pop up. And we found a lot of people don't know what a watershed is, or it's hard to describe if someone asks you. And so I actually struggled with that before this, and now I know how to describe it. So the glossary is helpful in that way. So when you come here, you'll get a map of the water bodies in this watershed that the state of Colorado has assessed in the last cycle that they submitted to us. And you can click on them, and you'll see that these, all 12 of these are impaired. And that means that one of the uses that they were evaluated for was impaired. So if just one is, it's a worst trumps rule here. So you'll see that it's impaired. The year last reported, it was 2020. This is Cherry Creek. And then you can see the uses it was evaluated for, which drinking water is good. That means it could become a potential future source of drinking water after treatment. Aquatic life is good. Recreation, it's impaired for recreation. And then sometimes there's other categories, and I'll explain that in a little bit. And you'll see what impairments were identified. We have defined all our impairments in the glossary. So if you click on that, you'll see bacteria and other microbes. You'll get a definition of that impairment and what you can do about it in your community to reduce that. So you'll also get the same information on the map as on the list. And since the waters are red, that means they're impaired. If they are good, that means all the uses were assessed good. And the condition unknown may be that it was identified to be assessed, but there wasn't enough data, or it just wasn't assessed for a specific use. So you can see all the water bodies in the list at once, or you can click around the map. And each water in this application also has a water body report page. So you can see the condition a little bigger here too, if you're on a small screen like mine. So if you click this link and open the water body report page, this is going to give you a unique URL. And this is exactly what this Colorado has submitted to us. So we roll up certain words into different uses, like recreation could be swimming, but we call it, so am I getting it mixed up? Swimming. Swimming is recreation, but we call it swimming. But the state could have submitted recreation, so we've rolled up these words. So this is exactly what the state submitted. And then the impairment was E. coli, but we rolled that up into bacteria and other microbes, just to be consistent across all states and territories. We rolled those up for that purpose. But on this page, you can see exactly what was submitted. I think the agriculture use is probably the other one in that you saw. So you can see that it was submitted there, and that's good for agriculture. And then we have plans, if there's any plans to restore water quality, any restoration plans or TMDLs for this water, it will be on this page as well. So you could email this page to someone that was just interested in this water body right here. Okay, there's a lot on the overview page. So we also have a layer here, our water monitoring locations from, I know you all are familiar with the water quality portal. I looked at your website. So any water that's been monitored, it could be states, tribes, volunteers, or just groups that have submitted it through the water quality WQX and then the water quality portal. If it's coming from the water quality portal, it will show up here. So your data should show up here. And so you can turn those monitoring locations on. You can click on them. And this is the only place in How's My Waterway where you can actually download the data directly. So you don't have to go to the water quality portal. If you wanted this data from this monitoring station, you can choose what groups you want, and then you can download the Excel or CSV file here. And we also have a separate monitoring page in the app, which I'll show you in a few minutes. We'll do a deeper dive on those locations, and I can show you some of the data that you actually submitted. So the next layer that we have featured is permitted discharges. If you turn that on, you're going to get all the facilities that have a permit to discharge directly into the water from our ECHO database, our enforcement and compliance database. And so it will tell you information about this facility, if there's what the permit status is. It looks like there's a significant non-compliance status here for McDonald's Farms Enterprises. That's interesting. Not a significant effluent violation, and if there was an inspection or if there's an enforcement action. And if you want to do a deeper dive on that non-compliance, you can go to the facility report in that database. It will take you outside How's My Waterway. So that is the overview page. And before I move on across the rest of the community level, there's a lot you can do with the map. So turn that layer off. If you want to find out the entire upstream watershed, the entire drainage area that drains into this smaller local watershed, you can press this button called View Upstream Watershed, and this is going to zoom you out. And you can see where all the water is coming from upstream, draining down into Denver. And so we use this a lot as an education tool, telling students that this is whatever happens upstream is going to affect what's happening downstream. So that's very useful to see. And if you want to click around other watersheds, we have a watershed layer. Where is it? It's gone. That's interesting. Okay, I'll make a note of that. So we did have a watershed layer where you could turn on layers and you could click through different ones that were in this whole upstream watershed. Let me see if it comes back on if I zoom out of there. Oh, there it is. Huh, that's weird. Okay, so here's the watershed layer. You can turn that on, and these are going to be all the other HUC 12 watersheds around there. And you can change You can click and change your location if you feel you've landed on the wrong watershed or you just want to see the data. In the next watershed next to it, it will reload the data and show you the data for that watershed. And you don't have to have that layer on to do that. If it's off, you can still click on the map anywhere and update to a different location. It sounds like the kids are home, so hopefully they don't run down here. So we also, okay, another cool feature, because I'm on my EPA laptop and it's small, is you can make the map full screen. So if you go to this button at the bottom right of the page, it says enter full screen, and then the map's gonna expand to full screen mode, and so you can click up, you can see a lot more. You can click around a lot of different places here. So going back up here, we recently added a button called add data. So for, sorry about that noise. So you can add a bunch of different data sets that we don't own, but these are coming from ArcGIS Online. And so when you come here, there's the suggested content that we've suggested that might be useful to add to the map to look. I have a few layers in here like land cover, air monitoring stations, urban heat islands, park boundaries. But I like to click on this flood hazard area, and then this flood hazard layer, which is FEMA's layer, will show up, and you can see if there's a 100-year floodplain where you are. And then since we don't own this data set, we can't control the legend, but you can still click on the legend and it will come up and you can try to interpret it. But this is pretty straightforward. So the darkest has the highest chance of flooding, the dark purple, and then you get down to the lighter one. So most data sets have that, that you can search for in the add data button, and then you can turn it off. You can also, I think we've suggested about 10 layers, but you can also, we have the suggested content. You can also go to ArcGIS Online and you can search through, it looks like 10,000 items here. So you can search for any public data sets that you think might be useful to overlay. So I like to searching for smoke earlier because I was curious, and I found this smoke forecast one, and if you turn that on, you can find out about potential smoke in the area. And if you click, this one's dark, so I'm going to click on it, and it will give you the smoke forecast. So that's pretty cool. So coming up on 6/11, there's going to be some more smoke in the air, it looks like, in that area. And so you can have a lot of fun with that add data button, the legends over here as well. You can do a lot of stuff there, but just remember to turn off the layers there before you exit. You can also, if you have a web service, I forgot to mention, all our data in How's My Waterway is pulled in through APIs or web services, so it's we don't store any data, we just consume it from other databases. But if you have a web service you like to add of your own, you can put it in and add it. And you can also upload a file here if you know how to do that. Okay, now for the layer list. So we have a lot of different layers. If you think the light gray canvas is boring, you can turn on streets. We also have imagery hybrid, which gives more city names, topographic, terrain, light gray. That's the default in dark gray canvas here. And then if you scroll down, you can turn on the discharges I showed you from the overview page if you want. You can turn on the monitoring stations. You can see them better on a larger screen, and you can zoom in, pan around. This is the water bodies that you see it on the screen now, and in the watershed layer that I turned on before, you can see all the HUC 12s around there. I'm just going to go back to light gray. It's easier to see that there, so you can click around the HUC 12s or the local watersheds. I meant to say, you can turn that off. You can also do counties and see if your watershed crosses county boundaries. And this one's an interesting one I was clicking on earlier because it is in a couple counties. So you can see what county it's in. Arapahoe County, I don't know how to say that. And it's also in a different Denver County. So I think that's it. Oh, no, there's another one. It's in 3 different counties. And I haven't seen one like that yet. So you can see what counties that watershed's in. You can turn on this mapped water all layer, and And this is interesting. This is coming from our national hydrography data set. And this is going to show you all the water that's been mapped in the US. It might take a couple of seconds to come up. So when this comes up, the water that comes up might be different than the water that the state assessed, or there might be, you'll be able to see the gaps if there's other water bodies that weren't assessed. Oh, come on, this layer is so cool, I want it to show up. We'll wait a little longer before, so we also have state boundaries, but I don't think I need to turn that on because I don't think there's any other states in my view. We have congressional districts. So you can see, this is also very interesting because it crosses 3 different congressional districts. So you can click on there and, oops, find out who the representatives are for these different congressional districts. Jason Crow right there. And then we also have a tribal areas layer for any tribal boundaries, and there aren't any here. But if I zoom out, anything in dark gray is going to be a tribal boundary. So you can click on that and see what tribe is there. We also have, I think we have data here for about 10 tribes. 10 different tribes. So most of them that you click on probably won't have water data, but we do have some, and we're trying to get more. So that's a good way to see all the tribal areas that EPA has mapped. Go back to home. I'm sad that the mapped water layer is not coming on. I'm going to go back to small screen and just see if it works better there. There's less stuff on that. It was working for me earlier. I don't know what happened. Well, I'll keep that on. It might show up eventually. But there's one more layer that I want to show you. And we have recently added our demographic indicators from our environmental justice screening tool, EJ Screen. So if you turn on this layer, I'll go back to full screen. Okay, this is going to show you the demographic index, I think. Hold on. The demographic index, which is the percent minority, average of the percent minority and the percent low income in the area. And there's also different indicators here. You can do individuals under age 5, over age 64, in linguistic isolation. Percent people of color is actually, it used to be percent minority, so now it's percent people of color. And then less than high school education as well. So you can click on different ones and it will tell you here in the legend the percentages of that population in the area. And then we have definitions of all these as well. If I turn off demographic index and I just want to see the percent low income, that will come on. You can get the definition of what that means. We've also linked to the EJ Screen tool. And then also if you click on the map, you can get all these indicator percentages at once for where you click. So you don't have to turn different ones on if you don't want to. So this is, we'll show you the national, the percentile nationally, and then in that area for all those demographic indicators. So that's pretty cool if you want to play around with some environmental justice screening in your area. So that's the last layer.
Hey Kiki, if you zoom in a little bit, the mapped water layer should come on. I think there's a limit how far you have to be.
It worked earlier. I don't know what happened. Okay, cool. It's coming up. Okay. Okay, here we go. Let me go back to small screen. I'm overwhelming it for some reason. That's strange. Okay, I'm gonna zoom in. Okay, so usually it works better than this, but so the water that just is appearing here in blue and green, which is interesting. I haven't seen that green before. I don't know what that means. Dwayne, do you know what that means if it's green from NHG+?
I believe it's a drainage ditch or a connector or something like that. Yeah, I think you'll only see, or canal. I think you'll only see those out west.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So here you can see this water that's been mapped, and it looks like in this watershed, most of the water has been assessed that has been mapped. So you can pan over and change your location to see if those waters were assessed, and it looks like those were assessed too. But if I tell people if they see mapped water in their watershed that hasn't been assessed, you can contact your state and ask them to assess that water body. So that's all the map functions. That took me a while. But I'm going to go through the rest of the community level now. So coming from the overview page, if this swimming tab is just going to show you the swimming use, the waters, the status of the waters that are assessed for swimming. So if you're just interested in swimming, you can come to this tab and it will show you, and the map usually updates. I'll show you four of these waters are good for swimming, 5 are impaired, and 3 are condition unknown. And then if you click on the waters, it will tell you the swimming impairments. So this one, Goldsmith Gulch, maybe, is impaired for bacteria and metals versus swimming use. The next tab is eating fish. And so this would be if the waters were assessed for fish consumption. It looks like Colorado doesn't have any here. I don't know if they have any in general, but we also have a link to each state's fish advisory website because we know that that's interesting. I'm having all sorts of problems. That I usually don't have trouble going to a website, but anyway, that will link to Colorado's fish advisory website, and you'll get more. You can get current information on fish, more current information on fish advisories, or obviously this hasn't been assessed, so you'll get the fish advisory information there. The next tab is aquatic life. So this is how are the plants, animals, bugs in the water doing. You can see the map. This button I clicked on is aquatic life. Sorry, I went a little fast. On the map has updated, so you can see there's more waters that have been assessed good here for aquatic life. And you can see which ones those are there. So these 4 topics are what we found that the public was most interested in, so they get their own tabs. The next one is drinking water. You click on this, and we're switching gears a little here from the Clean Water Act to the Safe Drinking Water Act. So this is coming from our Drinking Water Office, our Safe Drinking Water Information System database. So here we have a county outline of the area. We have data by county here. So this is going to show us who provides the drinking water here, what systems provide the drinking water here. And so this drinking water tab has a lot of text. You can read it, and you can also turn it off if you want to get straight to the data. The data's down here. So up here we have a show text button. If you just turn that off, you can get straight to the data. So this is going to show the systems that provide drinking water in this county, and starting with the largest population served, which looks like it's Denver Water Board, and what the source is. It would be either surface water or groundwater. When you click on these, you can get more information on the system, if there's been a health-based violation. And then you can go to SIDWIS for more details. So if there has been a health-based violation, if you click on that, you can find out what it was for and what year it was for. It's kind of, this could be, the violation could be at any time in forever, 40 plus years. So it's good to go to the database and find out when that occurred. So there's 4 systems here. The next tab is who withdraws water for drinking, and this we switch back to the watershed. We have data by watershed here. So there's one system that withdraws water for drinking in this watershed and transports it to another area. I think this one was on the other page as a provider too. And so you can get the same information about that system. And the last tab on the drinking water page is our more Clean Water Act, back to the Clean Water Act. So what waters have been assessed for the drinking water use. So if I turn back on the text, this will explain that this is water, a raw water pre-treatment that could potentially become a future source of drinking water. And you should not actually drink that water yet, unless it's treated. So it's good to see that there is a few that were assessed good for drinking water. Okay, so now you've seen all this data, and the next tab is monitoring. This is where the fun begins. So these are all the monitoring data we have from the water quality portal in this watershed. You can filter here through different categories. If you're just interested in metals, you can just turn that one on, or metals and bacteria. And you're going to get a list of all the monitoring sites and the option to download the data directly from this list. Or if you click on them on the map, you can do that like I showed before on the map. I believe there's some of your data in here, and I think if I narrow it down a little, I can find it better. I think I saw some for metals. And so here we go, right here. So this is the Colorado River Watch organization ID, and so I see there's quite a few stations here that were submitted to EPA, and so you can click on that and download, see your data and download it. Unfortunately, we don't have the date here where it was submitted unless you open the spreadsheet, but we're working on that for the future. So that's how you see your monitoring data. And you can also just turn on a few different categories if you want, or just one or all. And so that is the monitoring, all the monitoring data there. Okay, the next tab is identified issues. You've seen all the data and what's going on, but you might want to be curious about what are the issues in this watershed as a whole. And so this is showing us that 100% of the assessed waters in the watershed are impaired, and the impairment categories are listed here, so you don't have to click on each individual water. You can see them all at once. You can just turn on one at a time if you just want to see where the metals are, or metals and low oxygen. Low oxygen popped up right there. You can turn on a few, or you can turn them all on. That's an interesting way of just seeing where the different impairments are in the watershed. And if there's a discharger that has a significant violation, it will show up here. But there's none here. I like to go to Pittsburgh because I have an interesting example there. So I will go Pittsburgh. And so this means that if the discharger has a significant effluent violation, it will show up on this identified issues page. And in Pittsburgh, we have two, actually, I think. Yes. So the word effluent has been defined in the glossary as well for people, but it looks like it's spinning, so I can't click on it. So we have two discharges with significant violations. One is the Cary Furnace redevelopment. You can go to the facility report and get more information on that violation. We also have Duquesne slag, which is something to do with metals processing. And if you click on it, here, it's down here, you'll see that, yes, it has been in the last 3 years, a significant violation. And I like to go back and see what impairment is in the water that's right next to it. And if I click on metals, you can see that, here we go. This water is impaired for metals, that's right next to it. And if you do go into the database, into the ECHO database, it will show you it is impaired for iron and another metal. And you can see the concentrations that they exceeded in that facility report as well. All right, I go back to Denver. So you've seen all the problems with this watershed. So you might be wondering what is being done to restore the watershed. So on the Restore tab, we have, we don't have anything on the map for this page yet, but we have Clean Water Act Section 319 projects, which are non-point source pollution grants from our grants database. And so any that are in that area will show up here. So we have Greenway Pure Trash Reduction Campaign, the funds, the project start date, if it was completed, and then this is also a link to that grants database where you can find more information on that grant. The next tab, we have a lot of plans here, restoration plans. So this could be a TMDL or any other type of restoration plan that was submitted. Some found some public meetings on Wisconsin. One was called Beach Party. I thought that was interesting. So it could be different types of plans or meetings here, but I would say most of them are TMDLs that we have. So there's a ton here, which is pretty cool. So if I click on one of them, you can find out that this one is a TMDL and the completion date was in 2007. So for each TMDL, if you open the plan summary, and these are all the TMDLs for this watershed. Earlier on the water body report page, I showed the TMDLs that are associated with that water. So each TMDL has its own page. So I just clicked on that, and then you'll come to a plan summary page. And this is a unique URL like the water body report page, or you could email this to someone that's just interested in this restoration plan. So this is going to give the information that Colorado has submitted to us with the documents for the TMDL. The water's covered, and you can see the water's covered on the map here. And then you can find out more information like the impairments or selenium and any permits too, if they're listed on here. So this gives a lot of information on that TMDL. And the last tab on the community level is Protect. So this page we just recently updated. I'm very excited because it used to just show tips, which we still show tips in this second tab here, and how you can help protect your watershed at home and school and your community. But we added this watershed health and protection button that has a few other layers. So the first one is watershed health scores. And if you turn that on, you can compare. It's going to tell you how healthy your watershed is in comparison to the other ones in your state. So it's just state by state. You can't compare states to states. So the darker the watershed, the healthier it is in comparison to the other ones in Colorado. This one is, so the watershed kind of in the middle. Watershed health score is 0.46. So if you look at this legend, it looks like it's a tiny bit less healthy than on average in the other watersheds. And here, and then you can see where the healthier ones are, the darker they are. You can pan around over there. Oh, that looks like a really dark one over there. So looks like these are healthier than most of them in the state. So that is the watershed health scores layer. We explain what that is and why it's useful and below. So I'm going to turn that off. Next one is wild and scenic rivers. So this will show if the area has any rivers that are protected by the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. And a lot of times there's not any, but you can also zoom out. And I know I saw some up here. So there's some up here. And you click on it, you can get a nice picture of the water. And this is the only place in the app we have so far. We have pictures and who manages it. And more information, you can go to the Rivers website. But if there happens to be I'm going to an area where I know there's one while trying to talk at the same time. If there Oregon, yes. I'm going to Oregon. If there happens to be a wild and scenic river where you landed, which I know there's one in Troutdale, Oregon, you'll get more information on it on the right. Just to make it look cooler by turning that on. And then you can do the same thing. See the picture of it there. And one thing I discovered you could do, so we have like the public law name here, the state it's in, if there's a management plan, just more information if it actually shows up on your screen. You can also turn on the water bodies that were assessed here and see that this wild and scenic river is impaired and see what it's impaired for, aquatic life. So you can find out more about it by doing that and see if your state has actually assessed that wild and scenic river. Okay, I will go back to Protect page. The next layer is protected areas. If you turn this on, oops, I kind of lost my spot. This is going to show all the protected areas that are coming from the protected areas database of the US. And the map should turn on in a second. There we go. So those are all the protected areas, and they're also in a list on the right, and you can find out who manages it, what's the category, and the access. You can also click on them on the map. and we don't own this service, so sometimes it's slow. There's also a legend. Oh yeah, and you find out that's a city park, and it's local government. And then here's the categories, which it's a marine area or an easement or fee or designation there. So that will show you all the protected areas, and if there's any protection projects, they'll be listed here, but we don't have any in this area. So that was a community page, and I know that was a lot of information. Could I have about 5 more minutes to show you the state page? Is that okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. So, so you've seen all the local information, the local watershed near Denver. So if you click on the state tab, and you can scroll through the list of states, and there's also territories here. And soon there'll be tribes, maybe in a few months. We hope to add the tribal stuff too. So if you click on Colorado, this is going to come up and give you an overview of Colorado, what's happening in Colorado, and also their integrated report online that they submit to us every 2 years of water quality across the state. So there's a couple metrics at the top. You can see how many rivers and stream miles and reservoir lake acres are in Colorado, and then a paragraph about the water program. And if you scroll down, this is where we get into the integrated report. So it's called State Water Quality Overview. And so here you choose a topic, just like on the community page. So swimming is selected, and then you can choose a water type and use. If you click on rivers and streams for the recreation use, you'll see the percentage of waters that were assessed good for rivers and streams in recreation in the 2020 cycle, which were a lot of right there. That's pretty good. And you can also look at lakes and reservoirs, which even more waters are good there. If there are impaired waters, it will show you at the bottom here the top reasons for impairments for rivers and streams in Colorado for recreation, and that is bacteria and other microbes. So you can do different combinations here. You can scroll through. I know there's no eating fish in Colorado. You can click on aquatic life and undo different combinations here in rivers and streams. And then the uses on the right, these are exactly what Colorado has submitted, and the states really wanted us to show that. Although I don't know what class 1 and class 2 means as a member of the general public, but you might be able to decipher that. So you can do that for each of these. We also have drinking water here, and the chart's going to update as you click on different combinations. And also, if there's an other use, agriculture, we saw that before, and see how many rivers and streams were assessed for agriculture. We'll show you that. So anything that didn't fit into these other categories just goes into the other use there. Now scrolling down the rest of the page, any documents that were submitted for the integrated report are here. You can download those and read them if you want. We also have success stories, non-point source pollution success stories for each state there. And then finally, links to the state's website. I find this very helpful when people ask me questions like, I don't know where to go to contact my state, and I go to this link and I dig it up for them. So that is the integrated report. And there's one more thing on the state page that I'm going to show you. It's called the advanced search tab. So previously you saw how the water was doing for each, the local watersheds, but this is a way of, you can see the whole state at once to see all the water that was assessed in the state at one time. So this is pretty cool. It's called advanced search. So we use these more programming terms here. You can search by parameter groups, which are impairments. If you just want to see where the bacteria and other microbes are in the whole state, you can pick that. You can select certain use groups like drinking water, recreation, aquatic life. You can search by water body names. You can pick multiple ones and see them all at once. And you can search by watersheds. Usually there's a name here, but some of them just have numbers, some of them have names. So you can pick several watersheds too, and you can see them all at the same time. So right now I'm just going to click on all waters and press search. So you can see that over 1,500 waters were assessed in the last cycle. And this will bring up a map. And there we go. So you can see the whole state of Colorado at once. It looks like a lot of waters were evaluated. So you can get this in a map form, or you can get a list by clicking on the list, and you can get that information for each water body in Colorado. You can also click on the map and a pop-up will come up, although it's kind of hard to decipher where you are because there's so much covered in this little map, but you can filter it down. And if I am only interested in, let's say, since we saw bacteria before, I'm going to click that and press search. And so there's 100, looks like there's 121 results for bacteria. And then right here, you can see where the waters were assessed for bacteria and other microbes. And if it's red, it's impaired. And you can click on that there and see what use was impaired, which was recreation. So you can do a lot with this little advanced search tool. You can do all sorts of combinations. You can have a lot of fun with this. If you just want to know where the TMDLs are, you can click that. You got 292 TMDLs in the state. And so those will show there. And then you can also get a list, and that will narrow it down to the waters that just have the TMDLs. So that is the advanced search tab. And so you can, Dwayne loves this feature. So he spends a lot of time on this. I'm not going to show the national page. That just gives an overview of our water nationally. You can explore that on your own. Just a few things at the top here. There's a data page that explains where our data is coming from. These are all the databases we pull from, or most of them. And it will explain where to find that data in How's My Waterway. You can also go to that data or system and find out more on how to use their services, how to use their APIs to pull in your own data to for your own uses if you want, to any applications you might have. We have an about page that has questions and answers and about information on How's My Waterway, and we have a contact us form. So if you're interested in contacting us, you can just fill out this form and it will go right to me. And if you're interested in the lesson plan that we have or anything, just let us know. And so that is my quick overview of How's My Waterway.